I wanted to do a little bit of a different video just off the cuff, just talking, but all my advice, experience I have as a career coach, because I've been studying psychology over 10 years now. I've helped over 1,000 people understand their psychology. And I thought I always strictly keep to the formats I use with psychological theories, but I thought I'd make it a little bit more personal, because one of the reasons that I really like psychology is that it helps understand yourself. And when you understand yourself, you can exercise a certain sense of control, agency, and create a life you want, basically. Yeah, so for me, one of the more painful moments in my life was when I basically had this existential crisis when I was 16, where I have always been ambitious on some level. And as a teenager, you can really excel in school and maybe get a nice girlfriend, and then you will be successful. This was my control, and I was pretty good at school. I was not unsuccessful with women, but not that successful. And I still remember I was dumped by this girl I really liked, and I also found out that studying didn't give me the intrinsic reward it used to bring me. And what I was really scared of was that if I continue on this path with school, I might, before I know it, end up in a job that I don't like. And I even had these fatalistic ideas that if I end up in this job, maybe my life will be ended before I know it. I will be in this job forever, and I will look back on my life sad and disappointed in myself. And this fear really made me think, okay, yes, I want to be successful, but I don't want to do it in a regular way. I don't want to just climb the ladder of society and then be quote unquote successful. So I rejected that idea, but that ended up having like a really big gap because there was no path laid out for me then. And it actually made me feel worse than before sticking to this path, or the matrix, as some people like to call it. So the substitutes for what this societal path brings is difficult because it's not laid out and you really have to think about it. And I had to discover most of these things myself, which was very stressful, made me also not as progress as fast because I didn't know what to focus on, what to put my energy in. And because of this lack of clarity, I basically ended up distracting myself as well with going out, having friends that were not serving me on a good and personal level. I ended slacking on study. And what I ended up doing is that one thing I always really liked was personal development. And I thought maybe I can make that into my job. But I didn't know what to do. So I graduated high school, and there was the option to study business just like my family does. And then, well, the path is basically laid out. And I said, no. Okay. I like to have some sort of clarity and some sort of focus, structure, even though this was basically the matrix, the society. So what I thought was, what study is closest to this personal development thing I did? And I was thinking, hey, this might be actually psychology. And I ended up doing that. So I studied psychology for 5 years. I did a bachelor degree and a master degree in organizational and positive psychology. I wouldn't recommend that as a basis, because having not so much structure in your life is actually very stressful. You need to get out of bed every morning yourself. You need to decide what you need to do. In university, things are laid out. You need to show up at this time. You need to prepare this. And if you just stick to these plans, in the end, you'll have a pretty good understanding of psychology, a good foundation where you can build on. So I think this notion of like studying something is bad is actually for a lot of people not a good advice, because the lack of structure without it is just very stressful. So even though some people are very practical, they like to learn on the job, for them it's better to just go into a field and work through experience. But as a general rule of thumb, I would actually recommend studying. I actually had a lot of time left during my study, which I could use to pursue my other goals. So that would be my first advice. Don't reject the societal path completely. Just maybe take it less seriously, or see it as one route you can walk next to the other routes you can walk. Then secondly, one of the most important things that you can leverage in your early life is finding out quickly who you are, what you value, what your strengths are, what you find meaningful. These things, if you find them out, I assure you, your life will get better and better sooner and sooner. Why is that? If you don't know who you are, what you want, what you like, you'll just basically float on a massive ocean, and you will just be dragged by all the currents, and life will happen to you. That is not what you want. This was also my fear, that I'll just be drifting in life and end up somewhere at 40, 50 years old, and I'm like, what am I actually doing here? If you know what you value, what your strengths are, every decision you make, you can view through the lens of, hey, do I find this important, or is this just the circumstances pointing me to this direction? If you know what you're good at, you're also way more easy able to pick a direction that you will actually be good in. For me, for example, I have dyslexia. So if I needed to become a writer, for example, wouldn't be so good. Also, I don't have a big eye for detail. So if I would have a nitty-gritty job where I just needed to focus on all the small details, I would get frustrated very easy. So that's the second advice. Know who you are. Know what you find meaningful. Know what you value. Know what your interests are. Practically, how to find this out? I would highly recommend for you to fill in a personality questionnaire, preferably Big 5 of personality or the Big 6. These are the scientific most validated personality questionnaires. So not the Myers-Briggs, the MBTI. They are less effective in mapping out your personality than the Big 5 or the Big 6, also called Ocean or Hexagon. I think it's also good to fill in an interest test. Can put one in the description below. That's a free one. I also made a video about it earlier, about finding out what your interests are and then linking your interests to a certain type of job. Then also what you value. What do you find important? For example, for me, performance is really important. Also, autonomy is really important. So in my job, I'm not too much reliant on other people. I'm also have a lot of independence. So it really suits me, makes me happy. Knowing your strengths. So what you can do is the people that are close to you, that can be your parents, brothers, family, whatever, close friends, maybe colleagues, ask them, what are my top 3 strengths and why? And what you will see, I did this, for example, when I was about 20. I actually had a confirmation of, I thought I'm pretty good in making a judgment independently, listening to people, advising people, but it's actually really helpful to hear that from another person, to have that confirmed. And I was like, okay, the career direction I'm pursuing with coaching, assessment psychology, it's actually suitable for me. What I also did is that I asked people, what am I not so good at? These are, of course, things that you can develop. For me, for example, eye for detail, like I said, but also I can be sometimes a little bit stubborn or focus too much on myself. Always good to develop these weaknesses. Then again, I think if you decide to pick a career, a job that is too much focus and emphasis on your weaknesses, you will make it very difficult for yourself. You can say, yeah, but it's like good because then I will get better at these things. Yeah, but you will also get better at the things you are naturally good at. So for example, you can focus on a career where you are already at a 6 or a 7, make that quickly into a 7 and to an 8. And if you stick to it, into a 9 and a 10, which people will be very happy for you because like, oh, you're doing so good. Or you can have like something where you're like a 2 or a 3 at, and maybe like in the end make that into a 6 with the same amount of energy, but way more frustration, and then still be 6 at it. Like it's, don't do that. So these are some practical ways to have the second career advice. So know thyself, as the Greeks say. The third career advice I have as a career coach and with over 10 years into psychology is that it's really beneficial to form hypotheses of what you like. For example, an hypothesis for me could be, I like coaching, or I like career coaching, or I like marketing psychology, influencing people. And then test these hypotheses by doing, for example, an internship in career coaching, a small project into marketing psychology, and then evaluate what kind of feeling are you left with after. Because the concluding answer of what suits you is, it doesn't have a definitive answer, but it actually has multiple answers based on the context you're in, the phase you're in your life. But striving for perfection won't work. And therefore, it's better to fire multiple shots and see what targets you hit, and then evaluate what targets should you go for. For me, for example, I did a non-profit thing in marketing psychology. And even though I thought I really like it conceptually. So I like the theory behind these things. Like doing it in practice, no, not so much. I don't like it. Don't like it at all. I don't like that it's like you make a post and then you need to make another post and you need to make another post and you need another post and you need to make another post. It's just, I like more of these deep things that will just happen in conversation. Like sitting down, having a conversation, and time will just pass and you just be in the moment, and then That's the thing I like way more. So set these hypotheses for yourself. Then find a way to test the hypothesis. And then evaluate. And try to set new hypotheses or more specific hypotheses, or do like a longer internship or like a paid job in this field. So the first one is, don't reject the matrix or the standard hierarchical approach of life and career. Don't reject it completely. Like, pick in it what you can. Second one, know thyself, preferably as quickly as possible. And third one, set these hypotheses and test them. I'm sure that if you will do this, you will actually have a very focused, goal-oriented and directed attitude in life. And this feels very, very, very good. So I would highly encourage you to do that. Please comment if you don't agree with something I say, or you feel like I missed something. And also be sure to click this link or this one to get more value of academically psychology-based videos that will help you find meaning, direction in your life. Thank you for watching.